Hi, everyone. My name is Saivanibi. I coordinate the research at Dataxis. So thank you for joining us for this session, which is co-organized by Dataxis and Amino, a company helping pay TV operators integrate video services, live, on demand, etc. But they will tell us more on this later. The objective of this webinar is to understand the next generation set-top boxes options for operators in 2023. And to help us in this understanding, we will have the pleasure to hear the insights from first Jonathan McKee, VP Product Management and Customer Support at Amino. So hi, Jonathan, can you give us more details on your role and responsibilities within Amino?
Hi, Steve. Thanks a lot. Yeah, so I'm VP of Product Management and Customer Support. So I'm responsible for the product management team, the product strategy, where we're going with the next generation of set-top boxes, as well as obviously the support team, which is a very important aspect of this, how we support our customers post-deployment of our devices. I've been in Amino for 6 years. I've been in this industry for considerably longer, so starting the industry around 2004.
Great. Then we have William Hughes, Director of Product Management, also at Amino. So can you also give us more details on your role?
Yeah, sure. I'm Bill Hughes, so Director of Product Management, looking after both our device management roadmaps and also our Android TV roadmaps. Been with Amino for maybe 18 years now, so quite a while, and in the industry for almost 25 years.
And the discussion will be moderated by Peggy Dow, who is the founder of Mad Perspectives and helping companies in their strategy in the media space. So hi, Peggy, same question. Can you give us a bit more details?
Hi, yeah, so I'm, Mad Perspectives is a consultancy. I help media tech firms with their messaging and help them kind of connect the dots between what they're doing and what's going on across the industry. So it's an industry I've been around these media tech companies probably since 2000. So it's been a long road and seen a lot of changes. So it's real interesting to see what's coming next in this conversation.
Great. So before giving you the hand, Peggy, I will start with a brief introduction to provide context for the discussion. As at Dataxis, we also gather data on TV markets and analyze the trends that are occurring in those markets. For the participants, the discussion will be followed by a Q&A session, so don't hesitate to write down your questions or comments if you have some during the presentation, and there will be time to answer them at the end of the session. So we can start with the market overview. So the first thing that can be highlighted here in this map is the growing importance of nonlinear internet-based video services. So this is data for 2022. SVOD is in green, so we see that across all regions, SVOD on-demand content has been challenging traditional linear TV distribution. We see that the adoption is more visible in North America, Latin America, and in Europe, where the penetration of SVOD services is higher compared to pay TV. So here the calculation is derived from total subscriptions and households by region. So we see that the number of SVOD subscriptions has exceeded pay TV subscriptions in the 3 regions. In Middle East and Africa, as well as in Asia Pacific, the figures have reached similar levels, and there is room for progression. We see that it's lower in terms of penetration. And so we see that in the map we compared the two service providers as if they were completely independent, as if they were competing with each other. But we'll see in the slide that's coming that they are not necessarily competing directly with each other, so they are not completely separate. So we see here that they have been implementing partnerships with OTT services, many partnerships over the years. So subscribers don't expect to stream only on one device, but they expect to find their services across multiple devices, including their pay TV operator and their TV sets. So we know that the consumption on TV sets, on TV screens, remains crucial for video services, even when they are on demand, flexible, and in theory, we can watch them anywhere. So we have examples of the size of some of the deals implemented by OTT services. HBO Max here has implemented the highest number of partnerships across the region. We see that the service, its library and features are available to close to 80 operators in Europe. It's followed by Netflix, available on around 50 operators. And then we have Viaplay, Amazon Prime Video, and Paramount Plus. Services which also understood the need to be available on operators' offers and environment. So most of these partnerships enable operators to provide access to OTT services directly on their set-top boxes. And then, so we can see here that the set-top boxes remain important content gateways globally. So these are global figures. And although they are challenged by the newly launched devices, such as media streaming devices, so here we're talking about streaming sticks like Fire TV or Chromecast in blue. Also challenged by smart TVs in green, the set-top boxes still constitute important distributors of audiovisual content in all regions. And we see that all types of devices listed here are progressing. Smart TVs and media streaming devices are lower, progressing a little bit faster, but they are still, for smart TVs, half the size of the set-top box market in 2022. So set-top boxes at 1.5 billion and smart TVs at 80 million. So this means that the latest films and services, series, they cannot just be offered online or only on some devices, but to provide the best experience to users, they need to be on all devices. So if operators want to provide these services, they can rely on a range of middlewares, operating systems, providing the advanced functionalities, access to content libraries, to OTT services, to all the features that are now expected by customers. So we have Android TV, the operating system developed by Google for TV sets, digital streaming device, set-top boxes. It provides an easy interface to integrate services, OTT platforms with a range of applications and features. Then we have RDK, the open source standard initiated by Comcast that operators can use to run set-top boxes, implement video apps, and all the features, the innovative features that they want to share with their clients. And we have also advanced Linux. So the advanced offers can also run on Linux, as well as Roku or Apple TV, which are also listed here. But for our session today, the focus will be set on Android TV and RDK solutions. And I will now leave the floor to Peggy to understand everything about these next generation set-top boxes options and the perspective for 2023.
Super, thanks, Saiva. So today I'm just moderating what promises to be a really interesting discussion, mostly from Bill and Johnny. What's really interesting is that it's clear that consumers really are enjoying both linear and streaming content. So whether that's the subscription SVOD content from folks like Netflix, Disney, or Amazon Prime, or whether it's traditional broadcast and pay TV linear channels, or even these emerging fast channels, right, that are the free ad-supported TV channels that you can find on a lot of your smart TVs and from services like Roku. The bottom line is that it seems like consumers want a combination of linear and streaming content on whatever schedule they decide works for them. So there's an opportunity for the pay TV operator to play a significant role in this, right? Because they've been in the living room and they've been aggregating content for quite a while anyway. And consumers, in fact, have relationships with those providers. You know, they're either the broadband provider or their pay TV provider. So the question is, how can somebody like Amino, who has been providing set-top boxes and working with these operators for decades and has a really unique view on the world, right? Because they need to have that unique view. They need to adapt their set-top boxes as the market and the technology around them changes. How can they help the service providers themselves answer the questions that they may have about what comes next? What type of services should they be offering? What is the best OS for me to be having on my set-top box? What gives me the flexibility to deliver the content that my consumers want? And can I use that? And how do I do that easily and maybe even sustainably? So these are kind of important questions. But let's talk to Bill first and learn a little bit more about what Android brings to the table.
All right, thanks, Peggy. So I thought we'd put this together kind of just thinking, first of all, about the what we've seen over the last few years of what are the considerations that operators have when they're moving from a legacy Linux platform onto a next generation platform. And I think you need to think about this in the wider context of what is the main objective of the service operator. And a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, that's really a focus on selling broadband. And so a lot of the migrations and the considerations, you have to be in that frame of mind to understand what the operator's up against and what his considerations are going to be and how that might drive the decisions that they need to make. So we have that in our mind as we go through this. I think it's helpful. So some of the considerations that we've seen, and I think we've had well over 50 operators now launch an Android TV service. So we have seen it be successful, and we've also seen a good amount of growth here. So we have some experience in this. One of the first things is you need to be relevant, right? You need to offer advanced services that weren't available on the Linux platform. And these are what consumers are just expecting. You could say they're advanced, but really at this point, they're almost table stakes, right? So things like voice search, assistant Alexa type features. You need to have apps and games built into the TV, and you need to be able to support federated search. So that means not just searching the TV application from the service provider, but being able to return results across all of the apps that you may be subscribed to. And then the other thing is, because there is this focus on being a companion service to broadband, is really being able to mix those devices that the consumer already has in their house, right? They already have these Chromecast and Roku type devices. So you need to be able to consider supporting those devices, supporting the mobile devices as well. And what we've seen is that most operators also want to make sure that they have a managed device. So they want a point of demarcation. They want a point of quality reference within the home, where they can say, we know the service is running well, and we can troubleshoot the service, and we can fix the service on a specific device within the home. So you need to be able to support many, many different devices. And then you've probably, if you're coming from Linux, you've already got a middleware system that's integrated. You've got the billing system integrations. You've got the customer management systems, all the customer data in these systems. You don't want to forklift that. You want to take advantage of what's there already today. You need to consider the user demographics. So this is a couple different areas, but the two most important ones is multi-language. So you need to be able to support right out of the box across all the platform and also the TV service multi-language. And you need to consider age demographics as well. So you need to consider those young users that want access to everything, and maybe the older generation that just wants a very simple channel changing TV service. And then you think about the whole potentially migration from multicast to AVR. And it seems to make sense when you're going to this Android TV, which is generally needs access to the internet to get access to all of the applications and games that are on there. So now if you're going to be putting these devices on the broadband connection, it makes sense then to move to AVR as well. And we've seen that across the vast majority of operators. And then once you make that decision, the next decision is probably, do I build or do I buy or rent? And there are a number of hosted TV services out there, and so you need to make that decision. Do I give up some of the control and just rent a TV service as it were, or do I build one from the ground up? So these are some of the main considerations. And again, with that idea of a companion service to broadband in the background. So what we've seen is that, with all of that in mind, the Android TV really does seem to be the simple choice for a lot of operators. It ticks most of the boxes there. Google Assistant is built in. Chromecast as well is built in, so you can cast from those mobile devices that we also said we wanted to support. You've got an extremely robust Play Store, one of the best in the world, I would say. You've got platform federated search that's built into the Android TV. Certifications, this is on my list because I think this takes a lot of the onus and the worry off of the service operator to make sure that the devices that they're selecting for their TV service are going to be compatible and be able to run all of the applications that are available in the Play Store and their TV service, and making sure they're future-proofing. Well, certifications take all of that burden off of the operator. They can be sure that if the device is certified by Google, that it is going to be able to run those applications that are also certified. Quick to market, literally, if you want to choose the standard launcher, you could be up and launched with a TV service within days or weeks. So that's definitely ticking the box there. And then the middleware options. Most of the middleware guys who are on the traditional Linux were already focused on, I think you guys know that the big buzzword years ago was TV everywhere. So they were already developing Android mobile applications. So when Android TV becomes popular, all you need to do is basically refactor that application so that you can use it with a remote control and everything's already integrated. So it was a very easy option. And almost all those middleware vendors that you're already working with are going to have an Android TV application there. But there are some trade-offs with Android TV that you need to consider. So one of the big changes is that and you need to have this in your mind when you're going to Android TV, is that you are signing up for frequent updates. OS upgrades come yearly, so annually you need to update the version of Android. So you're going from Android 10 to Android 11 and so on and so forth. And you're signing up for quarterly maintenance releases. This is a big difference from the Linux world, where we would generally see a flurry of upgrades when the service was first launched. And then after it was mature and it was feature complete, no one wanted to touch it, right? Because you don't want to break things on the customer. So that is a big difference here. You are going to be signing up for doing a lot of upgrades, but you do have that confidence that all of the releases are certified, and there is that integration and certification that's going on in the background between the Play Store and Google. So that takes a lot of the worry out of those upgrades. If you want to get the most out of the Google Assistant, you do need to Google login, and for some people that's not something they're willing to do. Now, that's not to say that Android TV won't work or will be unusable without a Google login. It definitely will still work fine, but you're not going to be able to order that local pizza or get the local weather. You might have some complications there. So to get the most out of it, you do want to enter a Google login, and for some people, they don't want to do that. There's a few areas where you're limited in control. So apps being installed on the device, you don't, as an operator, you can't say which apps can and can't be installed. Again, generally this is okay because all of the apps are certified through the Play Store. But there are some apps that we've seen operators take offense to, generally those that are kind of associated with content piracy. But as from Google's standpoint, those apps can also, they're not actually surfacing the pirated content, but they can provide a means to get at that pirated content. But they can also be used for very positive use cases as well. So they're not deemed to be nefarious applications. The platform roadmap, you don't have a lot of say in the Android TV roadmap. And there's been some features that have been, we've heard operators have been asking for the longest time, like user profiles on the Android TV platform. Currently today, there is no concept of user profiles. And on the other side of that, the roadmap is sometimes aggressive on the security side, where it may, sometimes it comes close to impacting some of those features that operators rely on to provide support to their customers or to troubleshoot devices and that. So as an operator, you don't have a lot of say in that roadmap. And then the custom launcher user experience design. Generally, there is a certification that you need to go, and generally that certification is just making sure you're doing a good design. But there are some limitations on what you can do, and there are some requirements, like making sure you surface the Play Store very, very easy for your users to get to. Generally, again, it's things you would want to do anyway, but there are some limitations there. The hardware requirements are driven by Google. As we said in the past, that's a good thing, but it also can be a bad thing, because that means that a lot of times they're speccing very high performance CPUs, a lot of RAM, a lot of flash compared to what might be needed on other platforms. So that can drive the cost of devices up as well. And we talked about the quick to market option, which is just using the standard launcher and getting to market really quick. That means that your TV service becomes another application that rides on top of the launcher. So that means that you need to select that application from the launcher. And for that elder generation, that may be something that's a bit hard to get used to. Now, we've been able to do some things with Google where we can launch that application as soon as the box is booted. But there are some corner cases where if you hit the home button, you can get out of that experience, and maybe some users get lost. So there's some of those trade-offs there. So I would say that in conclusion, Android TV is a great selection or a great option for operators that are just willing to give up some of the control in exchange for a really great app store, all of the assistance and Chromecast features, and speed to market. And so what does Amino focus on? We're really focused on making Android TV easier for operators to deploy. So we have this term called operator ready Android TV. And really that's been the focus since day one. Is we have a lot of experience in what operators need to launch a TV service. And then we know what Android TV is offering, and Android TV was introduced as a retail-focused application or OS, and they've done a great job at integrating features for operators, but there's still a gap there, right? There's always going to be a bit of a gap for certain operators. So we're always looking at filling that gap, and that's why we call it operator-ready Android TV. It's a total solution for Android TV. We're not just shipping you a box and then say, hey guys, good luck with that, install your apps and have fun and cross your fingers that it's working. We have everything from end to end. We view it as a total solution. It's a device, it's firmware developed and certified by Amino that runs on top of it. It is support, it is device management, it's the total solution that operators would need. We have a lot of expertise in delivering very complex features on top of Android TV, and we've done that in a number of cases for our customers. Device management, I think Google offers a very basic device management that will allow you to upgrade the firmware, and that's absolutely good. But we know from the Linux days and working with those customers that our customers want a lot more. They want to be able to fix problems in a customer's homes without rolling trucks. They want to be able to get metrics and know about things that are happening with devices before they impact service. So that's another area that we really focus on. And sustainability, Peggy, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but this is something that, when you first see it, you might think, oh, sustainability is higher price. We haven't found that. We found that it's either cost neutral or in some cases a little bit of cost savings. And so we've made this a very important part of our roadmap. So even if it's not important to you, you get the benefits of what Amino is focusing on if you're our customer. So I think that's you'll see a lot more of that in our future roadmap for Android TV. And then the release maintenance, I would say that we're one of the most aggressive we're one of the most aggressive companies in making sure that we're doing those yearly upgrades and we're doing those quarterly maintenance releases. I have Android smart TVs that are stuck on the version that I had the day I bought them, and they're starting to get slow and that kind of stuff. So you're not going to be dealing with that with Amino. And I mentioned our support. We have now support across the planet, basically, in every location that we that we sell our devices. So I think in summary, Android TV, really great option for those operators, again, that want to launch a TV service without a lot of the worry and the engineering and the due diligence in the background, and just get up and get going really quickly. And we've seen it be something that's actually growing quite quickly and been very successful for our customers with a number of launches now.
So Bill, you mentioned here the complex features, expertise in delivering complex features. I guess I'm not surprised given Amino's background, but what are some of those complex features? I mean, how does Amino help overcome?
Yeah, so we've had a number of operators that needed things like DVB-C or over-the-air tuner integrations into Android TV. And now that Google is actually starting to offer a DVB-C integration, but we were able to do that well before that was available. And we were able to offer a lot of the advanced features on top of that, teletext and those kinds of features as well. We've had customers ask for minor things like VLAN tagging that, you know, wouldn't be something that's supported in out-of-the-box Android TV. We've had customers ask for PPPoE support. So things like that, integrating CAS for our customers, which can be a pretty big project that is not part of the standard Android TV platform. So yeah, there's a lot of cases there where we've done a lot of bespoke and complex projects for our customers.
So that's interesting. So for as much as Android, Google and Android, you know, they have kind of like their standards that in that there's always some customization potentially that
always, and there's
unique needs of the operator basically.
Yeah, and there's always going to be bug fixing. So you need someone that has an engineering team on top of Android. They're not just shipping you a box with the out-of-box Android experience, because you're going to run into problems. And when you do, you need someone that can not only pick up the phone and answer your call, but be able to actually fix those problems. And that's something you really need to consider when you're launching an Android TV service.
You also mentioned device management, and I know you said that, you know, Google's device management is kind of basic, and what Amino provides, you know, is more robust. But in that, are there some things that Amino can do with its device management that make it easier to manage Android devices that are deployed in the home?
Yeah, and it's been one of our biggest selling points and why we've been so successful is we've spent many years developing a comprehensive, you could almost say, service management platform for Android TV. So things like if a customer has a problem, and one of the examples I always give is, you know, one of those elder users, the kids came in and turned closed captioning on and they can't figure out how to get it off. They can pick up the phone and they can call the service operator and say, hey, this is annoying, I'd like to get this off my screen. Generally, that might be trying to walk the person through that on the phone could be complex. You know, I need you to push this button. No, what do you see on the screen now? No, you pushed the wrong button. And so we're able to actually see give the operator the ability to see what's on the screen in real time, take control of that device if the consumer allows them to, and then actually resolve that problem. So any configuration problems that they have, they can resolve that remotely, or they can even get a lot of diagnostics out of the device as well. Like, has it authenticated with the DRM system? Is there a problem with CPU consumption or memory leaks or all of that kind of information? So we give a lot more information than just being able to update firmware, and we give tools to actually fix problems.
That sounds really great. Cool. So thanks for all that insight about Android. That's very, very helpful. But I have to admit that everybody's probably not comfortable with the Google universe. So maybe there's some other options, and there's myths around all of these solutions. But let's talk to Johnny a little bit and get a view of where Linux is actually going. And are there some options related to Linux that we should be thinking about, you know, such as RDK or whatever? So Johnny, on to you.
Thanks, Peggy. So I think we should look back at the data from SAIVA, and you see that there's still a very significant proportion of the devices that are deployed are Linux-based. And I look at our own products, and we're still selling, the majority of the devices we sell are Linux. Now, the landscape's certainly changing, and Bill, if we go on to the next slide. Linux today considered to be very traditional devices, maybe limited feature set compared to Android, and there is pressure for an equivalent set of features, so more applications from premium content services, and an equivalent like voice support. I think the market and the applications and the features are being driven by what Google are doing. There is a drive to do something new, but as you say, maybe not everybody is comfortable with purely an Android TV solution. And there are reasons why perhaps some of the capabilities you have with a more traditional Linux platform are still very valuable today. What we've also got in Linux today is major players such as Comcast investing in Linux platforms. So we mentioned RDK earlier. So as I look at this, there is still an interest in Linux. There is an industry group who are still driving investment in Linux, and it does have a lifespan. So we can look back at Linux and look at the traditional devices and the limitations of them, the complexity of an app integration, and think, well, we need to do something different. And I think our view on that is we agree, we need to do something different with Linux. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the only option is Android TV. We need to look at the past of Linux. We need to look at the failures and the issues with that, and we need to look to the future of what the apps can be, what services can be, and how we solve some of the problems that there have been in the past. Bill, do you want to move to the next slide? So the key things and the key advantages I see with the Linux platforms that are out there today: operators can completely own the user experience, and that's significant. In Android TV, you have the two options where you can have a custom launcher, which gives you a lot of control over the user experience, but not total control. So there are still certain requirements that you must meet within a custom launcher in Android TV. Google can change those requirements over time, and you do need to comply with that if you want to launch a certified Android TV product. Or you go for the platform tier launcher, which, as Bill says, means that your application is simply another app alongside all of the others within the Android TV experience. So it very much limits how you can promote your own brand, how you can promote your own content. On the Linux platforms, you obviously have complete openness. You can do what you want. You can go mad, build whatever user experience, user interface you wish. One that promotes your brand, promotes the content that you most want to deliver to your customers. You do also have the flexibility with apps. It's both an advantage and a disadvantage within Linux. It's much more complex, or traditionally has been much more complex, to integrate applications, and particularly the premium applications on a Linux platform. But you do have control of which applications are on your platform. And one of the issues with the Android TV solution is you have no choice. You have no ability to say a particular competitor's app cannot be deployed onto your platform. So, as an operator, that's significant. Your main competitors, maybe in a particular market, their app must be available through the Play Store. You cannot interfere with that. It's against Google's. You can't interfere with anything that a user could download from the Play Store, and you couldn't prevent that being installed on your devices. And even on a platform tier launcher, it's possible to remove an app. So potentially a customer removes some of your applications that you want to promote. So Linux gives you that flexibility that you can say what you do and do not want to have on that platform. Device cost is another aspect that needs to be considered. We have seen new requirements coming from Google over time, where, for example, it has changed Wi-Fi requirements, therefore leading to the requirement for new chipsets, therefore more cost. Memory requirements are dictated by the Android platform. Within a Linux platform, you need to make sure that the memory you put on a device meets the needs of the applications you wish to deploy. But again, to the last bullet point, you have control of that roadmap. So you can tier your service. You can have a low end that maybe doesn't have some of the premium apps that you then maybe deploy a reduced memory footprint. Plus you might have a premium tier where you have, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, plus high memory spec for all of the high-end features like voice control, like premium apps. So it gives you a lot more control. It allows you to tier your services. It allows you to control your user experience. It allows you to control what applications you might wish to deploy to your customers. And I think that's the key difference here. It's all about control. It's all about what you want to do. And Bill, if we go to the next slide, the challenge here is the flexibility you have. Do you have enough time and money to actually manage that flexibility? And that has traditionally actually been the issue with the Linux deployments. 10, 15 years ago, when a set-top box simply put a simple UI on the screen, it was linear channels. It wasn't the most complex task in the world. As the complexity of the device has increased, the complexity of the integrations has increased, and we've got to the stage now that actually very few operators can start from scratch with a Linux platform, integrate all of the apps they wish to deploy, integrate the management systems. The complexity of that's huge. The costs of doing that are huge, and the time to market would be huge. So it's no longer viable, in my opinion, to look at the way we treated Linux in the past, do all of these things as an individual operator yourself. You're going to end up with a very limited platform, or you're going to end up with a very expensive platform that takes you a very long time to get to the market. So increasingly, that's not viable. So what is the future? Thanks, Bill. So we looked at this several years ago, and this has been a project that has been running within Amino for a few years. We see RDK as being a great platform that allows us to solve some of those challenges that I just described around Linux. It's an open platform, so that gives you the infinite flexibility. Now, with that, as I've just said, comes responsibility to limit what you're doing, not to diverge from the platform. Otherwise, you're back into this problem of cost and complexity. But with that open platform and with the work that's being done within the RDK community, you're getting standard support, you're getting APIs such as Lightning that developers understand. You've got good browsers, modern browsers with the latest standard support for development of world-class user interfaces. And one thing that's improved significantly over the last 18 months, I would say, is the chipset support. In the past, there were a small number of chipset vendors who actually had a viable RDK platform. Today, that's increased dramatically, and we're seeing most of the mainstream chipset vendors actually supporting RDK. So it gives us a platform that starts to share the costs of development across a much wider community. So no longer are you looking at a single operator having to consume, to absorb all of those costs. We've now got a much wider community investing in all of the things that are required in a modern set-top box platform. We work together, we collaborate as a community, and we get cost savings because codes contributed back into the RDK platform. Everybody benefits from that. Everybody benefits from the work that's going on. Bill, if you go to the next slide, please. The challenge is RDK itself is still seen as a huge task for many operators to take on themselves, and I can't disagree with that. It would be if an operator were to choose hardware and then decide to integrate RDK themselves. It's what Bill said earlier about Amino making our platforms operator ready. We've done the same with Android TV, and we've done the same now with RDK. we need to make RDK operator ready so that it's no longer pushed to the operator to absorb all of the costs of integrating RDK and all of the apps onto the hardware. The Amino approach has been to take our latest generation of R series hardware and look at the platform, integrate all of the components with the hardware that require integration. You know, some of this doesn't come out of the box with RDK. There's a lot of integration required. There's a lot of work required in some of the lower level security, the lower level boot process, disaster recovery. And by taking that on and building a platform that's reusable across all of our customers, it gets to something that's a lot more accessible for our customers, and it makes the platform operator ready. So Amino select, build, test the components. We also bring forward APIs that we've had for many years in Amino OS on other Linux platforms to create an easy migration path. So if you've deployed with Amino in the past, deploying on one of our R series boxes that might have RDK under the hood, it's actually very, very easy because the higher level interfaces and APIs are actually the same as the last generation of Amino boxes, maybe built on a completely different platform. And then the other thing that we do is we're part of the RDK Video Accelerator program. So that is very similar to the certification process that Bill described for Android. It means there's a set of standards, a set of tests that we use. Those standards are defined by RDK management, and our products are tested against those standards to ensure that we have got compliance with a standard RDK platform as any third-party developer would recognize it, and as required by the premium app providers. So to get access to your premium apps, it should be much, much easier, as this is a video accelerator program device. So our approach has been to remove the RDK overhead, as I would call it. You know, this perception that RDK is not suitable for a lot of operators. It's too big, it's too complex. That would be right if you were starting from scratch. It's not correct if you're getting an operator ready platform from Amino, where we have already done that work and we've used our skills and our expertise to develop an integrated platform. And, you know, operator business, that's what we've been doing for the last 15, 20 years. That's what we know. This platform's designed for the operator business. And by doing this, I think we've corrected the balance of cost and complexity for Linux. So I would still accept that, you know, if you want the largest app store in the world with the most apps, definitely Android TV will provide that. But there are now options for operators who want to keep control. They want to have complete control of their user experience, complete control of their data, control of their roadmap, control of the hardware spec that they want to deploy on. If you want to tier your services for some of the very low-end devices, which, you know, will have maybe a low memory spec, don't have Wi-Fi, it's possible with a Linux solution from Amino, which we're building these days in RDK, because that then gives us the standard support that we're looking for alongside the operator ready features that Amino builds into the platform. And then the last point, Bill, if you could go to the last slide. I'll mention sustainability again. I do feel that having control of your roadmap and having control of the software and the services and the features you put onto the device gives you control of the device lifespan. And, you know, we have devices that are running still that are 10, 12, 13 years old, that we're supporting them in the market with previous versions of Linux. I see no reason why devices can't easily last that same period of time running our next generation of Linux based on RDK. And operators have a choice when they upgrade, when they take new features. So you aren't automatically going to end up with an obsolete platform. You know, you have complete control of the release cycle. And the other interesting thing that I feel we get with our Linux platforms is the ability to upcycle legacy devices, and we've done that before. Upcycling devices that, for example, one example is a hardware vendor who exited the market, and Amino have ported our Amino OS Linux platform over onto those devices to mean that devices that are only 3 or 4 years old, but no longer being supported by the hardware vendor that produced them, can still be used in the market, can still exist for another 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And, you know, I think that's a much better story than those devices having to go to landfill because they're no longer supported. I think that's something we can continue to do on a Linux platform that is probably not feasible on an Android-based platform today, based on the restrictions and the requirements that Google place on that platform.
So I find that really interesting, Johnny. I'm actually really excited about Amino's commitment to sustainability. And I think what you're highlighting is that the approach to sustainability, obviously there's been a lot of work done with your supply chain to make sure that the devices themselves are sustainable and whatnot. But it's also about the software as well. And so maybe you can speak to a little bit about that balance between how you're working with the supply chain to get devices that are sustainable, but also what is Amino doing from a software perspective? We talk about, we've talked here a lot about, you know, Android versus RDK, but there's Amino OS and there's other software that Amino brings to the table that makes a difference in the long run.
It does, and I think with sustainability, you have to look at every aspect of your business. There's a lot of focus on hardware, and you know, people have talked about recycled materials and things being used in packaging within plastics, etc. We do all of those things, but there are many other aspects to this, and I think the software side of it is important. Because the decisions you make in software will do things like dictate the lifespan of a device. So I think in Android, it remains to be seen what is the actual useful lifespan of a device. We all know with our phones, as a phone starts to get old, then you'll find that it can no longer take the latest OS updates. Then you'll find app developers no longer support the older versions that they're starting to become, they're being deprecated. And ultimately, while the phone's perfectly usable, practically subscribers will change them out. And I think the same thing's likely to happen in Android TV. We don't know the speed at which that's going to happen yet. In the Linux environment, you simply have that choice. You know, you could choose to deploy applications where very quickly the older devices in your estate can no longer support those applications. They're not viable. But you've got that choice. You don't have to do that. You might decide that, you know, the latest application that can't be supported in an old device is only deployed in the next generation of devices, and customers need to upgrade. You've got that choice, and I think that's, you know, that's the message here. That's what I think really is the difference between the Android environment and the Linux environment. It's about choice. It's about control. And it's also about reinforcing the fact that definitely some of the limitations in the Linux platform of the past are starting to disappear. The initiatives that we see with RDK, if it's used correctly, allow you to move forward and give something that's you know, creates a good user experience, gives you access to apps, gives you access to voice remote control. It is a next generation platform. But it does require a partner such as Amino who can turn this into something that's operator ready.
So when I sit here and I think about some of the conversation we were having with Bill about how Amino overcomes some of the complexity, I think you're saying that Amino can do the same thing when it comes to RDK as well, and in terms of trying making it operator ready and dealing with some of those. Like, do they need a specific integration with a specific DRM or CAS vendor, or do they have to support, you know, DVB-C or whatever else? I mean, that is the case, right? That expertise is there. That expertise exists. It doesn't really matter what the OS is. Doesn't matter whether it's Linux, RDK, Android, whatever. Amino brings that level of knowledge.
Well, I think that's a real differentiator for Amino. It doesn't matter whether it's Android or RDK or any other platform. We've got an extremely experienced team of engineers that have been in this industry for 20 years. that know how to do this stuff, and it does differentiate us. And it's extremely important, and it also is part of the reason why we consistently get the fantastic feedback from our support team about our support services, because not only do we have a good support team answering our questions, responding to our customers quickly, but they're backed up by an engineering team who can fix problems. And that makes a difference. So, the same skills are required here to be able to turn a really complex platform like Android TV or like RDK into something that just works. And those same skills allow us then to react to problems that customers see in the field. We understand the networking protocols, the things that Bill mentioned, PPPoE. We can add those, we can develop, we can debug, we can fix them. It allows us to differentiate ourselves through those skills and the support we provide.
And you've spoken to the idea of control quite a bit, control and choice. Does Amino provide anything that helps? I mean, I know you do, so that's why I'm asking the question. That helps them control the devices. So from it's that device management piece a little bit. It's about being a little bit proactive about.
Well, Bill mentioned device management. I'll hand over to Bill to answer that one, but the device management, the capabilities Bill described for Android, we integrate those in all of our platforms. So they're in our Linux platforms, they're in our RDK platforms, they're equivalent. Bill, do you want to give a little bit more on some of our device management?
Yeah, and I think, well, the thing that was going through my mind with device management when you guys were talking about sustainability, I think we've talked about some of the features already, but probably one of the most powerful things we have when it comes to sustainability is actually our device management, because we have some really good data on how much we've been able to actually save truck rolls, and that's direct CO2 emissions. That every time a truck doesn't have to be rolled, we're saving those CO2 emissions. So I think there's much more to device management than just control of the set-top boxes, but also there's control, there's sustainability, there's actually having really good customer service, being able to offer a level of customer service that honestly no one else can, because you have access to those tools that no one else does. So yeah.
Great, that's great. So I just want to open the floor for some questions. There is one question here, and this is really actually probably more for Saeva, harkening back to the presentation she made at the beginning, which is you had a slide that referenced legacy Linux versus advanced Linux, RDK and Android and whatnot. The question is, what is legacy versus advanced Linux?
So in our definition, the advanced Linux is when the set-top box is connectable. It can be connected to the internet, and also it can provide access to OTT library, for instance, and advanced features, PVR, NPVR, 4K, so elements like that that are present in the set-top box, in comparison with legacy, where all these features will not be available.
Okay. Hopefully that answers that question. I'm curious what Amino has seen as what are the drivers for our customers wanting to migrate, either away from Linux or to advanced Linux or to whatever, what's motivating them to make change? I can go to Johnny or Bill or.
Well, I think it was kind of those considerations that I had in the beginning there in my mind. That's a lot of those come to mind. So, some of and it varies between every operator. What is the driving thing for them? Some of them, their driving force is we need to free up bandwidth on our broadband network. And one way to do that is to get rid of the multicast network. And if you're going to do that, then you probably need a device that can support OTT. And if you're going to do that, then you've got to make a platform choice. So it kind of rolls on each other. And then there's other ones that just say, we're in a competitive marketplace, and we've got guys that are, our competitors are offering something that's a heck of a lot more compelling than what we have as a traditional zapper. So that may be their driving force. So it really depends, and we've seen a mix and match, and we've seen some that they're up against all of that all at once. So I think it varies for operator to operator.
Right, right. We have another question here that says, for a TV app, is it not better to make an app like Netflix that would be usable on all devices and not specific to the set-top box itself?
Well, I think, you know, if I jump in and answer that, I think that's really where the industry's going. There's a set of capabilities, APIs, features within Android that allows your app to be reusable across Android TV devices. And, you know, RDK is going a very similar direction. Linux is going a similar direction where we have standard APIs like Lightning. There's a good browser that gives you the latest standard support for HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and improve the reusability of apps. So absolutely, that is the objective. And these platforms go a long way in achieving that, compared to, you know, look back only maybe 5 years and you deploy an app on a set-top box, and, you know, another set-top box maybe using the same chipset, the app wouldn't work on it because the implementation at a lower level, the Linux implementation, would have been different. So absolutely, that is the direction of travel. It's the only way to go, because the costs involved in developing these apps are too high to do it differently for every single operator that's out there. And so it's about standards. It's about coming together as a community so that every device out there meets the same set of standards. And when I talked about on the Linux side, when I talk about video accelerator certification, that's a way of proving that the device meets a set of standards, APIs, performance standards that allow an app developer to guarantee their app will work on that device. And Bill could talk you through the complexity of the certification process, which does exactly the same thing in Android.
That's great. Okay, I think that's all of our questions. If anybody has any others, please pop them into the Q&A. Otherwise, I think I want to thank everybody for attending today. Bill, Johnny, that was a great conversation, really informative. Saeva, thank you very, very much for your insights. That was actually some very interesting points about what's going on in the marketplace overall. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.